Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Silver Savage podcast. In today's episode, I have Chuck Walton on with me. We discuss powerlifting, we discuss sobriety and addiction, we discuss faith, we discuss coaching, we discuss so many different topics that I don't even know where to start. So, with no further ado, let's get into the episode. And we are live. Awesome. So, you said your house was underwater when you came back from your competition?
Yeah. It's happened once. It's happened once before. Hold on, somebody's at my door. I'm sorry. I apologize. The guy just showed up about the damage yesterday.
No, all good. All good.
Yeah, he didn't text or call or anything, but that's how things work out. Yeah. Left Knoxville in the morning. Drove through a little bit of storm. Heard there was tornadoes, but people in the South panic about everything, so I didn't pay it any mind. Pulled up to my house. All the siding was gone. I was like, all right, no big deal. Walked in, foot of water, everywhere in the house. Took me until about midnight to get it cleaned up, and then about a half an hour later, it flooded again.
Oh, man, that sucks. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I'm running on like a half hour sleep, but.
All right. Are you good to do this?
Yeah, I'm good.
Awesome. All right. So let's start there, actually. So you're in Tennessee now, right? But you're not from Tennessee.
No, I'm in Kentucky now.
Oh, you're in Kentucky. Weren't you in Tennessee?
Yeah.
Or were you in competition?
I was just in Tennessee yesterday. I was down there. I was coaching and competing, and then took my little girl down. She wanted to go see the zoo and some museum at a prison down there that she wanted to see. So I made a weekend of it. It was enjoyable to spend with her.
Your daughter wanted to go see a prison.
Yeah, she's really big into history. And when I told her I was taking her with me to Knoxville, I was like, research what you want to do. I figured she'd come up with restaurants or something like that. She came up with a prison and a zoo.
Nice. Wonderful. I love it already. Awesome.
Yeah.
So, but you and I met in Baltimore. So
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about, or tell our listeners a little bit about your background, where you grew up, what you did, and how you got into what you're doing today.
So I grew up in West Baltimore City till I was, I don't know, early teens. I was getting a lot of trouble growing up in West Baltimore, because that's all we learned how to do. Moved out to the county, Woodlawn, which really isn't much different from West Baltimore. It's 3 or 4 miles up, but nothing changed. Still getting in trouble, running with wrong crowd, doing all the dumb things. Didn't have much of a family life, so pretty much my mentors at the time were like alcoholics and gangbangers, because that just felt like a safer place to me than home.
Oh, wow.
So that kind of led me down the wrong path, and eventually I was just like, I'm better than this. I'm meant for something more than this, and I cleaned up my life a good bit. Got out of the criminal behavior. My grandmother passed away, and then I really had nothing keeping me in Maryland. I wanted out to get away, so I signed up for the National Guard. Did my basic training, AIT. Got hurt. They found out it was an issue that had been going on. I'd had it around going on for a while. I had scar tissue on my spine from playing football, I believe. I don't know. It was the first time it really ever acted up on me that bad. And I got a general discharge for medical reasons.
Okay. And when I met, you came through security basics class we were running. I think that's when you and I met the first time, right?
Yes,
did you ever
it's good memory.
Huh?
I did one thing with you. It was something there local to your office. They were having a lot of problems with gangs. It was a religious holiday, so everybody was out and walking around. Some of the community leaders were worried and wanted more of a presence than what the police was willing to provide. So we did some neighborhood security there for a while. And then we never really did anything after that. I had obligations with another security company. Me and you had sat down and talked about the casino right when you started that. But that was about it. I don't think I did any other work with you.
No, and that's fine. I don't know the garage. It's all good. But
Hmm.
so really, you and I stayed in touch with social media. And when I said I'm looking for people to interview on my podcast, you said that you'd be interested. And I thought that'd be awesome because you have a pretty interesting journey aside from, your upbringing, but really in the last few years, more so. So I really want to share that with our listeners. I think they're going to get a lot of benefit out of it. So if you don't mind, let's start with your fitness and strength journey. Because you're now a power lifter, you compete, you coach. How'd you get into that?
Um, I've always been athletic. Sports and fitness was kind of my escape. That, and it was just I felt it was necessary just to take care of myself. Growing up in the atmosphere in the neighborhood that I grew up in, like I had to be physically strong. Otherwise, I probably would not have survived being one of the few Caucasians in that area. Um, So I got away from it a little bit. I used excuses like I had my back injury from football that and ultimately ended up me getting discharged from the Army. So I used excuses. I got a little out of shape at one point, and then I was just like I was kind of disgusted with myself. Started going to the gym. I got in really good shape, and then I was at a gym one time. And I saw this guy sitting there, and he had a piece of equipment I'd never seen before. And I looked around; nobody was touching it, nobody was anywhere near it. I was like, I got to know what this thing is. And it was a log. I went over and tried to pick it up, and I thought I was one of the strongest and best built guys in the gym. And that thing was hard. And the guy came over. He was like, "You did pretty good." I was like, "What is this thing?" He got to talking to me about it, and he was like, "I do strongman." I was like, "I've seen that on TV." I was like, "That's where they run with the cars and stuff." He was like, "Yeah, it's more than that." And me and him got to talking about it, and he actually took me out in the parking lot to do a car deadlift, and I was hooked.
Nice.
It was just it was like I'm still a child in a lot of ways, but it was like every child's dream. I just got to pick up do things that the human body isn't supposed to pick up. A little bit of ego involved in there, and I loved it. I did that for quite a while. Got into the coaching once I got a coach and realized like the importance of having a mentor, even in physical fitness. I got so much better, so I started taking on other clients for different things, and kind of just went to turning fitness into my main thing. Security was my main obligation, but fitness was like my passion, and I was trying to turn it into a business, but I just never had the follow through and drive and direction to really make it take off. And I did that for a while. When I first got to Kentucky, I took on a bunch of in-person clients as soon as COVID lifted. Was doing that for quite a while. Competed for the first time in like 3 years. I went down to what it was called Music City Strongest Man in Nashville. Did that competition. That was just a warm up for a bigger paid competition. Did that. I did pretty well. I had that confidence and fire back. And then I was moving my RV, and again, this is where ego and stupidity comes in. I was moving my RV, backed up to it. I was off by an inch. I had my daughter with me. I was like, she doesn't know how to help me back this thing in. So I was like, it's a 700-pound tongue weight. I'll just pick up the RV and move it. So I did, and I sat it down on the block. The block, as soon as I sat it down, the block crushed. The camper hooked up to the truck with my hand stuck inside of it.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so that took me out of the fitness thing for about a year. My selfishness and ego. If I can't go to the gym and lift, I'm not teaching anybody else how to do it. I stopped taking on clients. Started drinking more. I hid it from my daughter because I didn't ever want to see her to see me intoxicated. And I knew usually if I drank one, I was fine. If I drank 2 or 3, I wasn't going to stop. So I wouldn't let her see me do that. And that right there should have told me I had a problem and I needed to stop. But I just wasn't that honest with myself. So fast forward, I got away from it a little bit, started lifting again. Wanted to do another strongman competition. Then I got into a car accident. Injured my spine again. put on a lot of weight. Doctors told me I could never lift weights again, but I'm a toddler. I don't like to be told I can't do something. At that point, like I really ignited the fire back inside me. I was like, somehow, some way, I'm going to find a way to lift weights again, but not just lift weights. I'm going to be great at it. And that just, it incited a drive and determination to me to prove to myself that nobody else's self-limiting beliefs are going to hold me back. That among with just, I wasn't the man I wanted to be. I wasn't the man I wanted to lead my daughter, and she deserved someone better than the person I was at that time. I decided to put myself in a long-term treatment center just to kind of refocus my brain, just kind of remember who I was and refocus. And I told myself, I was like, I'm going to stay there for 2 months, just no distractions, work on me. And I got in there, and all the selfish things came up. Like I was worried I was not going to be able to see my daughter anymore, worried about this, worried about that. And then I built a relationship with God again. And that's really what it was. It was hard at first. Like I was one of those people that didn't believe in God, but blamed him for everything at the same time. So it took me a while. Once I built that relationship with God, like the rest just kind of fell into places. I started being more open, honest with myself, holding myself more accountable again, taking these principles that I could teach to other people and preach, but didn't apply in my own lives. Or if I did, I applied it when they were when they were convenient for me. Really started applying those, and really realized that the only way I can keep these gifts that God gave to me through my understanding and application and my hard work is if I start trying to give them away. So the next thing it seemed to be is go back into teaching, and I'm trying to look at a lot of different ways. But I'm taking on clients again. I've taken on some pro bono clients. Obviously, my daughter. I train her. I train her mother, my ex, for free. I was training a combat wounded vet amputee down in Tennessee for a while, but she just had to have another surgery, and she's going to be out of commission for probably 4 months, and then she's going to a challenged athletes program for 6 months down in Texas to help her learn how to use her leg again. So I'm there as a support system from a distance there. But yeah, that's kind of how I got back into the powerlifting because I couldn't physically do strongman anymore.
Awesome. So let me unpack some of it because you threw a lot of things at me. So let me just break it down. Let me stick to the fitness for a second because I want to circle back to your sobriety and your faith and obviously your relationship with your family. I think that's all stuff that all our listeners are very much interested in. But just because I know you just got back from a competition, and if I follow you on social media, obviously, and I saw you had an injury during the competition, right?
Yeah.
So how's that going, generally speaking? When you talk about powerlifting, like what are your goals? How's your training now? How is this injury setting you back, if at all? What are some of your goals, fitness-wise, for you personally?
My goals, I want to say they're humble and just to be in better shape, look good, feel good about myself, have more confidence. But I still need to work on humility. Right now, my goal is to be the best in the world.
Perfect. Awesome. I love it. Well, that's always a good goal. I always tell my coaching clients, aim high, right?
Yeah.
I find the biggest thing people have, they don't aim high enough, right? So when we said go, we really want to go high. But let me ask you this. So, obviously, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not a power lifter. I've been in the fitness industry for years. I actually just did the Murph, which is a completely different ball game. I'm not the strongest guy. I have my own medical issues. I had a tumor removed from my spinal cord, so my grip is all messed up. So for me, doing anything that's grip dependent, like let's say deadlifts, it's always a challenge. But for me, my main focus right now is longevity, right? I'm 48 years old, and I want to age gracefully, and I want to still be able to live when I'm 50, 60, 70 years old. So how do you think powerlifting plays into that? Do you think it adds, or are you putting too much strain on your body in a sense?
No, I don't think I'm putting too much strain on my body. The reason I switched to powerlifting is because I can't handle spinal extension or flexion anymore. powerlifting, to be good at it, you really have to keep a neutral spine and learn how to really brace your body and use every part of your body to lock everything into place to have the most effective and powerful technique. So I really don't get any issues as far as like longevity and overall health. I am doing things correctly for probably the first time in my life ever. Taking my actual health and wellness more serious than just how I look or how I perform. I get blood work done every single month. I'm on TRT. I do all the recovery. I do most of the recovery work I should. Like stretching and mobility work is one of those things I'll preach about it. And then if you ask me to show you, I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. So I'm getting better at that part. Huh?
I say I can relate 100% to that one. I always tell everybody, yeah, mobility is key, but I am not very great at doing it myself because it's not the sexy part of lifting. So I finished my workout and like, this felt good. So I'm not going to go and do a pigeon pose now or whatever, even though I know my IT men probably can use it. That's awesome. So I'm glad you're doing better, and I'm glad you're taking care of yourself, right? And you talked about TRT. That's something I'm on as well. We talked about in the show in the past. I actually have my doctor on a couple of times. Do you do the injections or do you do the pellets? What do you do?
At first, I was on the gel because the first doctor I went to, the medical industry as a whole is still they're uninformed about it. So at first they prescribed me Cypionate injections, and they were giving it to me once a month. And I was like, I don't think you understand how this works. I was like, this is going to do more harm than good. So they prescribed me that. I took the first shot, and then I was like, look, I'm not doing this. I was like, the way the esters work, I was like, you're doing more harm than good. This is putting stress on my heart, all my organs, everything. We're going to have high peaks and valleys. They were like, well, this is what insurance prescribes. And I was like, okay. So they put me on gel for a little while. Everything balanced out. My test levels were normal. All my blood work was good. But I still knew there was something better. So I did go to another doctor that he doesn't take insurance, but he specializes in this. So all he does is men's health. He doesn't do anything else. And TRT is one of the things he's very knowledgeable about it. He now has me on Cypionate. I do injections twice a week.
Perfect. Yeah, I got on the pellets, but mostly because my lifestyle with all my travel, taking the shots with me on my fly and whatever just wasn't conducive. But I agree with you 100%, and I always tell people if you concerned about your hormonal levels, and you need to go to a specialist. Your general practitioner has zero clue about what they're talking about, and they also not look at the right numbers, right? They're not looking at the right testosterone measurements and so forth. Awesome. So I'm gonna change gears a little bit and actually talk to you about sobriety, if you don't mind.
I don't mind at
all. It's something that's been close to my heart a lot recently, just because a lot of my close circles, from my wife to some of my friends, have been going through their own battles, successfully so. So my wife doesn't mind me sharing. I shared in prior podcasts as well. She had a postpartum depression, which she managed with alcohol. I give her a lot of props that she caught herself, and she went through the right programs, and she's been sober for over a year now, and she's been doing awesome. She looks great. She feels great. So what was your journey like with sobriety, and where do you see yourself heading? Because I know that's a big part of who you are right now. You actually wrote a book about it.
Yes.
Right? So tell us about that.
So again, it really came down to just like, I knew I wasn't who I was supposed to be. I didn't have a purpose anymore. A man without a mission is empty. And I really just did not know who I was. I knew like my biggest thing was to be a leader and mentor to my daughter. She's an amazing kid. And honestly, when I met her, she brought me back to life. Like I kind of refused to love anybody or let anybody get close to me. Didn't think I was capable of receiving love after my fiance passed away. And I kept everybody 10, 20 feet away. And this was for years, but something about that little girl lit a fire into me. And it just came down to the point, like, I knew I didn't want to be with her mother anymore. Me and her mother were very bad together. I'll take a lot of blame for that. We both have our demons, and that's not really important to get away with. But no matter where, if I was with her mother or not, I had a gift that I had to repay to her because I knew on many levels this child saved my life. And I just wasn't the man that I would want to lead her and teach her. So I had to become everything I wanted her to become. And so, alcohol was one of those things that was holding me back. So I did, like I said, I went into a long-term treatment program, and it was just basically like I was under so much stress between fighting with her mother, me and her splitting up, just not knowing where I was going to be at physically. I had the doctors telling me I'm never going to be able to do this. I couldn't use my left. I needed to calm my head. And I didn't really know if I was willing to commit to sobriety, but I knew I had to back away. And then within that, once I built that connection, that spiritual connection, like I found my purpose again, and that's really was the launching point.
Awesome. When you say you met your daughter,
as far as
sorry, Chuck,
my sobriety journey.
Chuck, I'm sorry, you're a little spotty. I don't know if your internet connection is strong or not. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you now. It got spotty there for a second.
No, that's okay. Awesome. So let me ask you this. You said when you met your daughter, was that at birth, or did you not see her for a while and then re-met her again?
So she's not my daughter biologically. I met her.
Okay.
She came into my life when I moved to Kentucky. She's not my daughter biologically. She looks at me as her father. I look at her as my daughter, and nothing's ever going to change that.
No, and blood isn't everything. So relationship is everything, right? So
yes, absolutely.
So
I made a promise to be there for this girl, and I'm going to stand by it.
That's outstanding. How old was she when you met her then?
11.
Okay. Those are some formative years in a child's age. So yeah. I can understand you wanting to be your best version of yourself for her at that point in time, 100%. So you went through your sobriety journey, and then you said you wrote a book. So you mind telling us about the book?
So the book was never supposed to have anything to do with sobriety. I was writing it as a lead magnet. I had a business coach at the time, and he told me to write a lead magnet. And somebody I was friends with at the time was just like, you have a unique and powerful story. Like, put something in there about you and make it more about you, just not about fitness. I think it'll resonate with people. And I was like, okay. And I talked to my business coach. He was like, yeah, definitely. It was like, you can even talk about your sobriety. And then, like, I wrote it, and there were some things that I just didn't like, and I would take it out. And then I accidentally deleted a whole bunch of it out of my files. And I was like, I'm stressed out. I've been working on this thing for 3 months, and I just lost everything. Almost everything I did. And I was like, screw it. I sat down one night from probably 9 o'clock at night to 7 o'clock in the morning and just wrote. And then I never even read it. I was like, if this was supposed to be to help somebody, and this is God's will, whoever is supposed to reach, like, I'm not going to edit it and put my hands into it too much. I never read it, never edited it. I sent it off to formatting. To this day, I've never read the book.
Oh, interesting. But I see you post every so often. It's doing pretty well on sales on Amazon. Do you mind sharing with people the name of the book so they can check it out?
It's called Beyond Addiction, A Warrior's Guide to Active Recovery.
Perfect. So listeners, if you guys want to check it out, go ahead and do so. Certainly a wealth of information on the fitness side, but obviously just the personal story alone is worth the read. So go ahead and check it out. So, through this whole process, you already mentioned that you also found God, you found your faith. So I always share my story. I consider myself a spiritual individual, but I have problems with organized religions.
Yes.
We grew up in a religious household, but I lived a religious lifestyle for about 10 years with my ex-wife, and so I've seen both sides of it. And I kind of find my own way. But my biggest thing is, how do you teach someone that came up with no faith, right? How do you teach them about faith? How do you get them to see that there is something that is bigger than them in a sense? What would be one of your advices?
For me, I just kind of tell them my story that, again, with me, organized religion put a really bad taste in my mouth. I felt like people were very zealotry, and they were forcing their opinion and their lifestyles on you. But I always knew there had to be something bigger. Scientists can't explain much. They come up with theories, but nothing can explain any of this. And I tell people, like, we're all born with God's will. And God's will is inside of us all. When we're a child and we do something wrong, we have a feeling inside. We know it was wrong. When we do something right, we have a good feeling inside that self-reward. To me, that's knowing when you're working in God's will. And then for me, it was just like, finally, I just started to have a conversation. I still, to this day, don't know a single formal prayer. My relationship with God is very personal. It's not based off of anybody else's theories, but every single morning, every single day, and sometimes plenty of times throughout the day, like I stop a lot of times throughout the day. Like when something frustrates me or I don't know the answer, I'll just stop and say, God, guide me and direct me. And usually the answer is there. So yep. I don't really have an explanation. I'm not the one to win anybody over, but I'm not going to push anybody else away either. I tell everybody this has to be a personal thing. Don't let anybody else define your spiritual journey or your relationship with your higher power. I don't care what you call them, but it has to be something bigger than you, because what you on your own has gotten you nowhere.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I always tell people that you didn't accomplish anything by yourself. And usually I talk in the bigger sense of a community, even
yes.
with a family, with a society, whatever it is. But there's certainly that higher level as well, right, that we tend to neglect. Because to your point, you said you didn't believe in God, but you blamed him for everything. And I believe the majority of people go about life doing the same thing. I love that statement. I mean, I know I've done it, right? Whenever I'm frustrated, I'm like, I blame something else, but I don't have the guts to go and actually establish a relationship with whoever that higher power is. And recently I came across, I guess, another philosophy in a sense, and they also don't like to give it a name. They just call it the creator, but the idea is the same. There's something bigger that guides everything, right? So we preordain to a lot of things, and we choose our own fate, but we also have free choice in a sense of whether we want to take on that journey or not, and that's on us. Yes. And I feel you're a great example and embodiment of that by choosing your path now, right? You obviously been destined for bigger things, and you at some point decided to make a conscious decision to follow it, which you haven't prior to. So I think that's pretty awesome. So let me ask you about coaching, because you said that you want to mentor and coach other people. I know you've been actively doing that on social media. I know you coach clients when it comes to the fitness side. Do you take any clients now in terms of coaching? Who's your avatar? Who's your ideal client in a sense?
My ideal client really is I prefer to train women, and everybody kind of finds that kind of odd. I've just found that when I train women, whether in person or through online, they tend to be more willing to invest in themselves. They put their ego to the side. Men are very, and I'm like this too, so I can identify that. I can figure this out on my own. I can do it myself. And they don't recognize that they've been doing the same thing for so long and it's still not working. So I prefer women. I will take anybody. I prefer, especially with my online clients, just general health and wellness. I want to teach them to build muscle, longevity of life, quality of life is the biggest thing. Weight loss. I do coach some powerlifters, and I enjoy that. That is mostly I do it in person, just because there's a lot of technique to it. And you really, to get that technique down, you really need somebody else. I could benefit if I had a me watching me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. And now I can identify with that element. I mentioned deadlifting, so I'm kind of stuck on 350 pounds. And the main reason is my hip flexor hurts me. And I know it's a technique thing, because my hip flexor should not bother me doing deadlifts, because it's a hip extension movement, not a hip flexion. But still, so I hear you. I probably could benefit from a coach that would check my technique a little bit more, because even though I have degrees in physical education and I've been for a bunch of coaching and certification, I'll be the first one to admit there are some lifts that are a lot more technical than people give them credit for. That's always been my biggest issue with CrossFit. I've been for a CrossFit coaching certification. I always say I want to be careful, because I think CrossFit was great in giving people making fitness accessible to everybody. And I think that's a positive. The negative thing, they have a lot of complex lifts in their routines, but their coaches don't know shit about how to do them correctly.
Yes.
So, and I think that's an issue. What's your take on that? I'm sure you see a lot of
pretty much the exact same thing. I like it because it really gets a lot of people started. It's something different every day, so it's fun for them. They're getting introduced to it. There is a lot of value in it, but there's so much risk in it too, because they're doing Olympic lifting, and then they're doing like even the pull-ups and stuff. Like they're teaching kipping with terrible form, and that's not something you do as a beginner. There's so much that can go wrong there. So yeah, I see the goods about it and the bads about it. I think the best part about it is just it's an introduction. It gets people moving. It's something different every day. It doesn't get stale, and there's a community there. It's almost a cult, but
not almost.
But yeah, I think it's dangerous. I've done it once or twice just for fun, because it is very similar to strongman in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's done correctly, right? So when you think about people, because this is the thing that I've seen. When I used to work for the Police Training Commission as an instructor, they sent us through a weekend coach certification. CrossFit at the time had a tactical certification for law enforcement. And you see these people with zero experience essentially going through a weekend class, and now they're coming back and trying to teach people how to do a proper snatch or a clean. Like these are lifts that take years to master, and you're going to go through a weekend class and all of a sudden try to teach it to other ones. So I don't know, that's always my challenge with it.
Yeah, I agree completely. And really, once under a lot of load or intensity, I mean, there is no simple lift. I mean, if you look at deadlift, you're just picking it up. But there's so many things that have to move in the perfect sequence for you to do that correctly and really get the maximum force out of it without hurting yourself.
Yep. I should probably get online with you one time on like a FaceTime or something so you can check my form on the deadlift.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. So let me ask you this. You obviously we do it with all our guests. This is a Silver Savage podcast. Most of our listeners are people like you and I. They're in our age group. They're warriors at heart. Some of them are warriors by profession. What are some of the things that you do to stay kind of peak condition? So you obviously lift a lot. Do you do anything else as far as your personal training?
Most of it's lifting. I have incorporated something into my own personal life that I designed it for my clients, because I realized a lot of my clients, what has held them back wasn't just the knowledge, but it was the mindset there. That I would keep hearing, well, I didn't want to do it because this happened, or I didn't want to do it this. So I gave them all a morning routine that as soon as your feet hit the floor, I was like, I want you to meditate for a minute or pray. If that's what you do, I don't push that on them too much. I make the suggestion. I was like, but I want you to work out for 15 minutes every single day. And I gave them just a quick like calisthenic workout. And then like they weren't doing it. So then I started getting up at 3:30 in the morning and like, look, if I can do this at 3:30 in the morning, I would send them videos of it. And then a lot of times it's mobility work. It's what I need at the time. And I had them questioning me, well, you were doing push-ups today, and then I saw you bench press in the evening. How can you do that? Like, I'm doing 15-minute exercise. This is not stimulating any growth or anything. This is for my mindset. It's teaching me to do something that I don't want to do first thing in the day. And they were like, well, why is that important? I was like, if you get up in the morning and do something that you really do not want today, nothing life can throw at you the rest of the day is going to seem that hard.
Yep, 100%. I love it. And I always say that the best coach is the person that's already walked that route, right? So you are most equipped to coach on the stuff that you've been through, right? For me to go and coach someone on powerlifting was stupid. I don't walk that road, right? That's not my world. But certainly you have the background and expertise to talk out of experience about those elements, which is awesome. So if people want to get a hold of you, Chuck, if they want to seek out some more information, if they want to talk to you about any of this, or if they want some coaching or training, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Either my Facebook or Instagram page. I pay more attention to that. I do have a website. I don't pay much attention to that. I put it together about a month or two ago. I don't really utilize it. Websites are kind of pointless at the time. The only reason I did it is because that was somebody's objection. I was like, for $150 a year, I'd never have to fight this objection again. So I put the website together, but that's Fitness by Shamrock. I'm Chuck _ Walton on Instagram and Shamrock Fit on Facebook.
Perfect. I'm going to put all of that on the episode notes also so people can find it a little easier. So there's a lot of Shamrock going on there. What's the idea with the Shamrock aside from you probably being Irish?
I'm not actually Irish.
Then what the fuck?
I'm not actually there. There is a story about that. So when I first got out of prison and decided to change my life, I went to, it was Waxter's. It was a juvenile prison, maximum security prison, and a guy that I knew asked me to go out there and talk to these young kids about the criminal lifestyle in the inner city, getting involved in gangs, and like kind of point them to a lot of these kids are in prison. They think that's a badge of honor. Like it's not. And I went out and talked to them, and I met this girl there who was in recovery from opiates. Opiates are very big in Maryland. I'm sure they're big everywhere, but Maryland is like known for it. She was in recovery for opiates. I met her. She was not the type of girl that I would ever pursue. I wasn't interested in dating at the time. I was interested in getting my life back together. I met her. She befriended me, and she became very attached to me. And I thought it was kind of weird. She was like 8 years younger than me, really small, docile, from a well-off family, not somebody that would be attracted to me. It was kind of weird, but we befriended each other, and we started dating, and I fell in love with this girl, and we got engaged, and everything was going great. And one day she came to me and she was like, "I'm going to hang out with a friend tonight. Is that okay?" I was like, "Yeah, why are you even asking me that? I don't care." I was doing private investigation at the time, and I would usually get home around somewhere between 9 and 11 o'clock at night. She was usually waiting at the house for me. She was like, "Well, I'm usually at the house when you get there. I just didn't want you to be worried." And this all seemed very off to me, but because she was so docile and kind of soft natured, I really never pushed her. And I found that later that was because an ex-boyfriend had raped her, and that's why she kind of grew close to me, because she saw me as a symbol of protection and safety. So she came to me and said that to me. I was like, "Yeah, I don't care why." And then I guess guilt took over, and she told me who it was. I was like, "I've never heard of this person." She was like, "Because I haven't seen her in 2 years. She's on heroin, and I want to try to talk her to getting off." And I was like, "You're not that person." She's like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "I respect that you want to help people." I was like, "But you're not the one." I was like, you're not ready to walk into somebody's life with an active addiction and tell them to change their life." I was like, "If anything, she'll change your life." I was like, "I've never told you no about anything. I'm telling you no about this." I was like, "I don't want you to hear." Well, the next day she came over to my house and she was acting really weird. Again, didn't want to push her. And I was like, "Look, I got a lot of stuff to do. I got to be up early." I was like, "Are you staying here?" She was like, "No, I'm going to go home." She was like, "But don't come by my house." I was like, "I've never came by your house in the middle of the night before. Why would I?" And that kind of struck a bell. But I was like, we're going to talk about this tomorrow. I'm not going to push you. Well, at 4 o'clock in the morning, her father called me and asked me. He was like, "Did Emily seem different yesterday?" And I'm like, "I'm half asleep." I was like, "Why do you ask?" He said, "Well, what did you guys talk about?" I was like, "Look, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to say this as respectfully as I possibly can. What me and her talk about is none of your fucking business." I was like, "Is there a reason for you calling me?" And he was like, "She overdosed." I was like, "Okay, tell me where she's at." He was like, "No, I don't think you understand. She overdosed." And I was like, "I understand that. Tell me where she's at. I'll be there." He was like, "I'm a real asshole for calling you like this." He was like, "I'm sorry, but she's dead," and hung up. And it didn't click at first. I went back to sleep for about 20 minutes, and then I woke back up, and then it kind of sunk in. I just didn't really know what to do. I was lost. I didn't know how to respond to it. I'd lost my grandmother I had lost friends from violence and stuff like that, but that hit differently because it was such a part of my life. It was somebody that I spent like every minute that I wasn't at work with, I was with her. So that hit me a lot harder than I ever would have imagined it was. And I came up with the most horrible way to really cope with that. She was very big into animal rights and animal welfare. She wanted me to quit doing private investigation and protection work and investigate people who are cruel to animals. I laughed at it, thought it was adorable. I was like, I would love it. Who's going to pay my bills? And I was just like, that was kind of the end of the conversation. So when she passed away, I started a charity in her memory, and I opened up an animal rescue, and I really focused on dogs from like dog fighting rings, the drug dealers that abuse. I felt that was a niche that I could really attack that your typical soccer mom could not attack. So I did that for a while, and I did it for about a year and a half, something like that. I learned a lot about it. I stressed myself out a lot about it. I was using that not to deal with her passing. And all it did was just nosy people they'd be like, hey, I want to donate. But first, tell me how Emily died. And it's like, it's none of your damn business. And then eventually I realized it wasn't my story to tell. It wasn't my story to refuse to tell. So I started being a little bit more open and honest about it, I guess. Maybe, I don't know if it was shame or guilt that I could have done anything, but I wasn't willing to talk about it. And finally, I opened up more about it. But that stress, I realized I wasn't benefiting me and I could do more. So I joined up with another local charity and just worked for them so I could do it behind the scenes. I didn't have to deal with the fundraising or the kissing babies and handshaking and all that stuff. I just worked with the dogs. But I got the tattoo from the rescue. She was Irish. She had one tattoo as a shamrock. She was obsessed with her Irish heritage. The logo was a shamrock with a paw inside. Well, I have two tattoos on my neck to remind me who it was. One is the logo from the rescue to remind myself to keep honoring her, and the other one is a Jekyll and Hyde to remind myself that at some point, I'm a very good person, but I've also known how to be a terrible person. Should have got the tattoo somewhere else or not at all because they didn't remind me of either of these things. But lessons learned. But yeah, so people would see the Shamrock, whatever, and because I was a more muscular guy, a lot of people that didn't know me will call me Shamrock. So that name is just kind of stuck with me since then.
Gotcha. Well, I'm glad I asked the question, and I'll be honest, probably would have been a good point to start the podcast in, but I don't know how to follow up on this, so it's a good thing we're doing this at the end, because that probably puts everything else in context for me at least, and I hope our listeners as well. So I do appreciate you sharing this with us. I'm sure it's not easy to talk about, so I do appreciate you opening up and sharing that with our listeners. Any last thoughts or anything that you would like our listeners to take away, if they can take anything from our conversation with you today?
Basically the biggest thing that I try to teach, and we kind of talked about that when you asked what my goals are, like I found that the most successful people I talk with on a realized basis, they have an unrealistic, and I take that on, and what other people would see as an unrealistic expectation that they can accomplish anything if they set their mind to it and dedicate themselves to it. I don't care what your past looks like. If you set your mind to being a better person every single day, mentally, spiritually, physically, there's nothing in this life you can't accomplish. I'm still growing every single day, but I make sure every day that I work on all three of those things, become better spiritually, mentally, and physically. I educate myself. Yeah. But that's my biggest thing. And I could talk about that for hours.
I'm sure you could, Chuck. So we're going to leave some for future podcasts, maybe for follow-up. But I appreciate you taking the time and joining me today. I know we changed this.
It was an honor to have you and talk to. It was an honor for you to have me. I really appreciate that. You're somebody I always looked up to from the security side and just the business side and your spiritual and family side. So, no, I was honored to be on.
I appreciate you, Chuck. And you be safe and good luck. And if ever there's anything that we can do here in Maryland, just let us know, brother. Absolutely. I need to make a trip back up there. Well, make sure you hit us up when you come here, and we'll hang out. We'll catch up. Absolutely. You have a great day. Probably not go drinking. Awesome.
You,
Well, Chuck,
you,
okay.
I said you can you can do you. It's just not part of my life anymore. Some people do fine with it. I'm just not one of those people.
No, I hear you, man, and I'm super respectful of that, and I always try to be considerate of the people around me. I've done the same thing at home, and I'm doing the same thing with everybody else that I come across. I'll be honest, I enjoy my bourbon, and that's a big thing
Mhm.
of my persona now, right now, at least on the social media side. But I'm honest in saying I have the utmost appreciation for everybody that said no to alcohol. I think uh, there is no benefit in it. I enjoy the flavor. I enjoy my one glass a day or something like that. I know how to control it, but it's not for everybody. And people
Yep.
that do not drink, I certainly feel that they're better and healthier for it. So certainly no judgment on my end. If anything, then nothing but respect.
Appreciate that, sir.
No, awesome. All right, Chuck. Well, you have a great rest of the day. Go deal with your house. Hopefully, it doesn't flood again, and we'll stay in touch.
All right. Thanks, BK. I'll talk
All
to you
right.
soon, bud.
Take care. Stay savage.